All right, welcome to another episode of the Scripting Den podcast. It's me again, Fernando, and in this episode, I want to cover the topic of going from developer to tech lead, essentially going through the process of that usually natural evolution of the developer role into something else. Mind you, not everyone wants to move forward in their career that way. A lot of people like to stay closer to the code, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But the what usually happens within our industry is that as developers we start taking on more responsibilities, and depending on the structure of the company and the how many teams there are and so on, an usual natural next step is to take on so many responsibilities that you become team lead. So let's see if you're interested in that, if you're interested in reaching that point. In this episode, I'm going to cover some tips and what to expect from that process based on what I went through, essentially. So a little bit of background here. I've been doing this for 20 years now. I've been part of the industry for 20 years, and I went through that process from dev into team lead several years ago. And so I kind of want to cover a little bit how that went for me to give you a little bit of background. I started working as a developer the usual way. My main technologies back then were PHP, JavaScript, and so on. And then after a few years as a developer, actually, the opportunity presented itself because the team I was working for, kind of everyone left out of the blue. The actual team lead, not just the team lead, but the manager for the entire team left. And by doing so, the company itself, which only had us as their workforce, was headless in that area. So a coworker and me, we decided to take on that role. So we shared the responsibility. It didn't make sense for example, for me, someone with so little experience, to try to do that myself. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because I took that opportunity to lead the team with a colleague and learn in the process. It wasn't something that I felt ready for at the time, but having someone else with more confidence and more experience than me allowed me to take on that more responsibility gradually, getting to the point where eventually he himself left and I was left alone there leading the team. Again, it was early in my career. I did my best. I learned a ton. I got to develop my soft skills through that process alone, but eventually I moved on into other development roles. So I kind of went up and then down, if you will, or left and right. And then because I kind of felt like I wanted to learn more about development and still grow as a developer. And that role itself was preventing me because I was taking care of other things, which we'll get to in a minute. So from there, again, I went into another company where I was working as a developer, and eventually I started leading some projects and some teams. It was a mixture of a developer and a project manager, in the sense that I was taking care of responsibilities other than technical decisions and having, helping the team with technical problems. Instead, I was also doing a little bit of project management, task assignments, and other things like that, less technical, which could potentially be more boring. It wasn't a great experience back then. I was in fact told that I was not a great team leader. I wasn't a great project manager, but that also felt like I had learned something through that process. I did know that I wanted to move that way, and the feedback I got wasn't great, but it was a reality check. So I did jump onto yet another company. In my experience, in my career, I've been jumping from company to company. Maybe that's you as well, maybe not. But every company culture, every new leader that I had, every new manager taught me a lot in that process. And eventually I got to a point where I felt comfortable with my technical prowess, with my technical knowledge, and I was able to confidently make technical decisions and confidently back them up, either with my team, so they would understand why I was making those decisions, and also with the clients and with my managers. So what I'm trying to say here is that, in my experience at least, going from dev to team lead wasn't just a straight path. It wasn't just, all right, yesterday I was a dev, today I'm a team lead, and that's it. My career changed completely. It was more of a gradual process. In fact, I was going up and down in different jobs in different companies, depending on the type of projects I was leading, and obviously depending on how much experience I had to that point. But what I do like to highlight is the fact that even earlier in my career, I took an opportunity that I honestly wasn't ready for, but I had enough confidence in me and my coworker so that we could do it together. I could have just stayed back and let him lead the whole thing. It would have worked fine for him. He had the experience to do so. But through that process, I really got to learn a lot. So I see that as like dipping my toe into what a team lead would be and how I would feel in such a role. So if you see that opportunity, just keep in mind that it's okay to also take it and experiment a little bit and figure out if that's the right choice for you or not. So leaving that story aside, what are the main differences between a developer, someone who's coding 9 to 5, and a team lead? Because usually, again, the team lead tends to be a developer. So where is the line that divides him or her from the rest of the team, if there is anything? The way I like to see it is the team lead is not the boss here. The team lead is just another member of the team who has different responsibilities. While the set of developers working within a single team are in charge of writing code, churning out tasks, moving the product or evolving the product, and whatever you're working on, the service or whatever, the team lead is the one responsible for making sure that that happens. So you could definitely say that, yeah, obviously the developers are also responsible because they are the ones actually writing code, and that's completely fine. But you have to understand that from outside, if you look at the team as a black box, everyone from outside needs to find a single point of contact, a single point of responsibility with for that team. They can't just be worried about knowing each and every one of you inside the team and understanding how you work and figuring out what you do and understanding which task are you involved with and what happens if there is a problem or a delay. All of that is done through your team lead. Whenever something bad happens, the question goes to the team lead and to understand what happened, why are we late, why are we not delivering, where did that bug come from. Those should all be questions that go through the team lead, sometimes to the rest of the team, and sometimes not. In my experience, I like to see the team lead as a firewall between the stakeholders, let's call them that way, because they can be clients, they can be managers within the same company, they can be other users within the same company, it can be a lot of things. So let's call them stakeholders. So the team lead is a firewall between them and the rest of the team. The rest of the team is or should be focused on delivering the best solution possible. That is the best code possible at the best speed possible, with the best quality possible. And to do that, they can't be bothered with things like, we're late or we're being pressured by different stakeholders because they have different interest in the solution, or they have different priorities and they want to change things mid sprint or mid development cycle. Those should all be problems that arrive at the team lead, and then the team lead should filter them, only letting the rest of the team know about them if they are relevant for them. If there is in fact something that has to change, a priority that has to change, and some tasks have to be dropped in favor of others, clearly the team has to know about them. If there is pressure, or if there is someone who's unhappy, one of the stakeholders who's unhappy with the quality or maybe with the progress of the project, maybe there is no need for the rest of the team to know about them. Maybe if they're close to a production release, it would be more stress on them that would just not be productive. There are other moments where the team lead can give that feedback to the team. So there is really that filtering task that is, I think, crucial for the team lead to protect their team, essentially. Another very important task that is usual difference between the team lead and the rest of the team are having the last say on technical decisions. Usually, in my view, a good team lead will discuss all technical decisions for the project, whether it's tech stack, architecture, or even algorithms that are being used with the rest of the team. They are discussed so the rest of the team feels part of making that call and understands why those calls are being made. And they should also have the opportunity to maybe contradict what the team lead is looking for, and provide better alternatives. After all, the team lead is not someone who's the best tech within the team. The team lead has other skills that are usually not found with the team. We'll get to that in a second. But so the team lead should be open to criticism and to be corrected even, or for their mind to be changed by the team. But, and this is an important but, the final say should be that of the team lead. And what do I mean by this? It is a balance. So as a team lead, you should be humble enough, again, to be corrected and for your mind to be changed by the developers in your team. But if a decision has to be made because there's no time, because there are other constraints that are not really being taken into consideration by your team, the final say is yours as a team lead. If that decision goes against what you're being told by your team, you're the one responsible for making that call. Whether you want to turn around and go to your stakeholders and say, well, actually, we can't do it that way, we have to do it this way because technically it's more accurate or whatever, that's you as well. That's on you. But if you want to say, your decisions or your reasoning is perfect and it makes sense, but we have to do it this way, that's your place as a team lead. You have to own up to that decision, though. If your call to go against your team's better judgment ends up being incorrect, ends up being or playing against you in some shape or form, then you're the ones responsible for it, and you should be taking that call knowing that. It is not a fun place to be, honestly, but you have to, as part of being a team lead, you have to own up to that responsibility. It's also one of the skills that you will develop as a team lead, being responsible for all the decisions within the team, whether it's one that you took or whether it's one that your team took and you agreed to it. Just think about the opposite scenario. Let's just say your team made the call and you agree with it because it makes sense to you. And in the end, in the long run, it was the wrong call. It's still going to be up to you. It's still going to be on you. And it's going to be your responsibility, not theirs. And that is really what, to me, differentiates great leaders from crappy leaders. When the shit hit the fan, let's put it that way, and the repercussions of that poor technical decisions come and reach you, If you just turn around and say, well, they were the ones deciding, and they were the one taking, making that call, I just had to agree with them because they wouldn't do it in any other way, then you're just showing that you're not a great leader. If the blow comes and you're the one who's going to get it first, you should be that firewall. You should say, well, yeah, you're right. That was the wrong call, but it's my responsibility as their team lead and I am the one who agreed to it. Even if it came from them, I'm the one who agreed to it. So it's on me. That's definitely one of the hardest things to do as a team lead, but it's also what will differentiate you as a great team lead or as a crappy team lead, essentially. So to summarize the set of the differences and the type of skills that you have to have as a team lead versus being just a developer within the team. It's more about soft skills in the sense of understanding how to deal with your team, understanding how to deal with stakeholders, and understanding how to walk that line between both areas. It's knowing that you are not the most technical person in the team, that you're leading the team because you have other set of skills, because you've agreed to take on other responsibilities. And it's also knowing that you're not their boss. You're just a colleague within the team who has different responsibilities. Yes, you are leading the team because you're the face of the team for external stakeholders, but that doesn't make you their boss. It always has to be a conversation with them and a dialogue, so that they understand that they have a free and safe space to come to you with ideas, with criticisms, and with potential problems as well. You're there to facilitate solutions. And with that, the most common challenges, or the most difficult parts of moving from that position of developer into that of the team lead are, for example, the imposter syndrome is a classic example that happens to everyone in the industry at some point or another, especially when you move on from what you already know, from when you come out of your area of comfort. If you've been a developer for several years, that space feels great for you, feels like home. You know what to do. You know who makes the calls. You know how everything works. Essentially, you might have a task that is new to you, but you know how to. You have the tools to solve the problem. When you move on to the position of a team lead, then things happen because you're no longer part of. Because you're now alone there, usually, in the sense of saying you're not the face of the team. You're now the one responsible for making the calls that you were so happy to take on before. Things like that. So it's definitely it can feel like it can feel different. It can feel like you're being inspected by everyone and judged by everyone. You just have to remember that you're not in a position of power and you're not in a position of being on top of everyone. You're just one of the team still, simply with different set of responsibilities. And if you internalize that and make sure that your team knows that, and you make sure that your team also understands that, and that's how you see it, if you all live through that experience that way, then you're not going to be judged. They're going to help you. It's going to be it's going to be a conversation that goes both ways every time, and it's going to feel a lot more comfortable to make those hard calls or to act as a lead, essentially, because they will gladly follow you if they understand where you're coming from. Another challenge that I went through in many of these projects that I worked on is balancing your responsibilities as a lead versus your responsibilities as a developer. Usually team leads tend to be developers. So when you're moving in that direction, your natural response will be to still try to code, to still try to turn down some of those tasks that you were working on before making the transition, because you know how they work, because you know the system, because you've been part of that project before. But if you try to take on both the role of a developer and the role of a team lead, you'll soon find yourself that you're not able to properly do either of them. As a team lead, you will have other responsibilities. You will usually have more meetings, for example, trying to report to some sort of leadership or some sort of stakeholders about the progress of the project. You will have to deal with research for technical decisions. You will have to probably, in some cases, deal with task assignment or planning, for the next development cycle, things like that. So it's going to be a lot of time for you to be aware of the code. And if you assign yourself tasks, then you're making, then you're putting the deliverable, whatever it is, in jeopardy, because you can't be sure that you will reach that goal yourself. You're not a developer working, 9 to 5 on that code. You have a lot of other responsibilities that usually take precedence over you writing code, while there are team leads that also successfully write code. They are either working extra hours, or they also have a support structure around them, like a project manager that will take care of all the things that you as a team lead don't have to. They will have other managers or other, sub team leads if the team is too big, that will also take responsibility off of you. If you're the sole responsible for the entire team, then the best for you is to just step away from the code. Understand that if you try to code, if you try to deliver tasks around coding, you're just putting in jeopardy the speed of your team and the potential delivery of your team, because then everyone's going to fulfill their task and you're going to be the one who doesn't. If you're assigning to you the most difficult tasks, for example, if you're not able to delegate those tasks to others, then those tasks will potentially be incomplete by the end of the cycle, and then you'll be the only one to blame for that. So it's a challenge at first to delegate, especially if you've been sharing with your team as a developer as well, and now you have to tell them what to do. It's not an easy thing. I went through that in my first experience as a developer lead. I would just take on too many things, work too many extra hours, simply because I didn't want my friends, even some of them were my friends, to do what I didn't want to do. Eventually, I learned to delegate. Eventually, I had enough. I just decided, you know what? I have a lot of other things to do that no one else is doing, but everyone else is coding. So let's just delegate the coding tasks to them and let me focus on what I'm the only one supposed to be doing it. It's not easy. It feels like you're taking advantage of your friends, of your colleagues, but it's, as a lead, is not taking advantage. It's just doing your job. It's just remember that the more focused you are on the task that only you can do, through that you're going to be helping them and the entire project as well. So you're not taking advantage of them. And finally, the biggest challenge, I think, that for developers moving into a team lead position is developing their communication skills. This is a common problem with developers. Not everyone has this problem, clearly, but a lot of us struggle at first during our initial years in the job to know how to communicate with others, especially when the others are not technical. And as a team lead, you will have to interact with non-technical people. You will have to interact with other areas of the company, with other stakeholders, as I mentioned, that are just not technical. So you can't really be expecting them to understand when you talk about CI/CD, or when you talk about bugs, or when you talk about problems, or reasons why you're making one call over the other, or why you're prioritizing one aspect of the development versus the other. You have to think about you have to know how to put yourself in their shoes and speak their language in the sense of focusing on what they are looking for from you. If they're from business, they want speed of development, they want fast time to market, they want money, essentially, they want revenue. If they are from marketing, they will want to reach more people, they will want to get insights. If just understand where they're coming from and focus on their expectations, and use and try to be as considerate as possible when it comes to explaining things. It's not about dumbing things down. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that everyone else is dumb simply because they're not technical. What I'm saying is that you have to translate simply because they don't speak the same language as you do. And on the same way, when they come to you, they usually are also translating things to a point. As a developer, you might not understand all the business needs or all the marketing needs or everything that they want to transmit, but you have to kind of learn how to get the highlights of what they're saying and making sure that you're sending the message across in a way that is understood. If the team is trying to say that we're not going to reach the deliverable because there are technical problems, then you have to translate that in a way that makes sense to your stakeholders. This is a conversation that requires both parts to be aware that they're not talking to the person in the same area. It's not just on you, it's also on them. But as a team lead, you also have to, developing your soft skills is not just about learning how to speak to non-technical people. It's also about learning how to speak with people in general. Your team will come to you with problems, will come to you with ideas. They will come to you for guidance or mentoring. As a team lead, you have to remember that they're not machines. Developers, we tend to be great with computers. We tend to be great with code, with logic, but people don't work that way. Newsflash. So we have to develop our soft skills greatly to be great team leads. Now, if you're transitioning into a position, most likely your manager or whoever made that choice with you is already seeing that potential. It's already seeing that you are on your way of developing great soft skills, or maybe you already have them. If that's the case, fantastic, you don't have to worry. But if not, you just have to be aware that that is something that you usually have to continue working on. And how you do that is not easy. And there is no single solution for everyone. You just have to find a way for you to understand and improve the way you explain things. One way that I usually recommend and that I see a lot of benefit of is writing. As a developer, if you write articles, if you write books, articles are the easiest way to get started. You will eventually develop a language, even if it's written, that allows you to explain complex concepts in easier ways, so everyone can understand. It's a great exercise for you to work on those skills. Even if you're writing them, you will eventually use them orally. So my recommendation here is that if you haven't already started, start writing. Get a blog. Go to dev.to.hashnode.com, whatever you like, and start writing. It doesn't matter if people don't read it. You're not doing it for them. You're doing it for you at this stage. Simply start explaining concepts, whatever you're doing at work, as long as you can explain it without leaving out the details, or whatever technology you want to play with, or whatever technology you found interesting. Just sit down, write it in a way that you're explaining it to others that have less knowledge about it, and that will come in really, really handy. And that also leads to the final skill that you have to keep working on, because we talked about soft skills they are also related to leadership skills in a way. We talked about the ability to, or how to develop those soft skills. But as a team lead, again, you're not going to be so close to the code or as close to the code as you were before. And in some scenarios, you might even stop coding at all. Or even if the team is big enough, you might even stop like reviewing PRs or reviewing code at all. So it might feel like you're less technical. It might feel like you're being pushed away of the code. And that is something that not every developer going through this transition enjoys. So it's also important that you develop some sort of mechanics, some sort of practice that keeps you closer to the code. Why? Not the code of your project, but with code in general, because you're still the tech lead. You still have to be up to date with technology trends. You have to be up to date with how the industry is evolving. Otherwise, you're just moving away from being the tech lead into just being the lead, which might be something that you're interested in. Don't get me wrong. Maybe you want to be moving towards something else like business lead, something like that. That's perfect if you are. But if you still want to be related or close to tech, then you have to find ways for you to stay relevant and to stay up to date. Writing, again, it's one of the options. If you're creating some sort of content regularly, maybe writing, maybe videos, maybe podcasts, whatever that is related to tech, it will force you to do research. It will force you to be aware of what people are talking about. So that's great. I mean, there are other episodes in this podcast where I talk about how to stay relevant. So I would highly recommend that you check them out. I will put a link in the show notes if you're interested into that. But just remember that this is something that you have to be aware of and that you have to work on doing. Otherwise, your task will take you away from the code and will potentially make you less relevant to others, or it will make you feel at least that you don't have the tools to make those hard technical decisions as part of your role. Some tips to go through that transition when this is your first time, when this is new to you, moving from a developer into a tech lead position. I would highly recommend that you find a mentor within the company, someone who you can have some kind of chat conversation, maybe every 2 weeks, maybe once a week, or maybe once a month or whatever. Someone you can trust with your problems, with your doubts, and someone who has more experience than you, who has gone through that process, and that so they can give you advice on how to solve problems, how to tackle potential issues, or how to approach the new role that you have right now. While it might feel like you're alone, you're not. Maybe you can find that mentor within your company. If it's small enough, the company, maybe you're the only tech lead, maybe you're the only who has gone through that process. But just look outside. There are a lot of technical people in Twitter or other communities that will be more than happy to lend their time, even if it's just once a month, or even if it's just through email, to give you some advice, to give you a third-party perspective. Let's put it that way. Sometimes looking at the problems from outside is a lot easier, and they can give you objective solutions. Another option is to invest in the skills that you have to develop, especially in your education. Investing in it can mean many things. Investing in your technical education. Maybe you don't feel like you have all the technical skills that you need or the knowledge. So maybe doing some sort of online course or going back to school in the process will give you that confidence, because it's all about that. It's about feeling like you know what you're doing. In my case, for example, one thing I did through my career was I never got the engineering degree that many do. I started after high school, then dropped out because I had a job. But eventually I went back to school, got an intermediate degree because I felt like I felt like I didn't have that technical knowledge that the others did. I was getting lost in some conversations where they were starting to talk about more complex topics. So I went back to school, got that degree, and it wasn't specifically the technology I was using, but I did got the confidence that I needed to move forward. So that might also be something that you want to do. And maybe it's just not about going back to school. Maybe it's just about getting books. There are a ton of books about management and knowing how to lead or being a great leader. So that might also be something that you might want to look into. Remember, this is not something that you easily pick up through experience, because if you do it that way, you're going to make a lot of mistakes in your path to greatness. Let's put it that way. So it might be a good idea to avoid your team and your stakeholders all those mistakes if you can just jump over them by educating yourself a little bit. Then another great piece of advice that it's really hard for some developers, me included, being an introvert, is to build relationship with other people, maybe your team members and maybe just your stakeholders. When the conversations happen between people that know each other, especially a little bit outside of work as well, I'm not saying become best friends, but just try to find common ground with these people. Try to find things that you both enjoy, so that there is a connection that goes beyond the technical things or the business needs, and goes a little bit more personal. That will also help you to either be a better leader. They will understand a lot more why you're making the decisions that you're making, or why you're the way you are. And the same goes with other stakeholders, other people, these people that expect things from you. They, especially when you're just getting started, they might be able to understand, better, or be a little bit more understanding if there are problems. Let's put it that way. And essentially, find a way to stay technical. If your goal is to be a technical lead, then you still have to have that technical skills up to date. You can't be thinking about solving problems or tackling technology solutions like you did 5 years ago when you were a developer. Technology evolves, some industries more than others, but especially now with AI and everything, it's a huge movement towards automation. There's a huge movement towards the cloud. You have to be aware of these things. I'm not saying you should be an expert of them and all of them. That's impossible. But you have to be aware of them, and then trust your team, your experts, to give you the advice that you're lacking. So, but you have to at least know what they're talking about. Otherwise, you're just blindly believing what they tell you, and it might just be perfect, or it might just be wrong, or it might just not be exactly what you need. If you take also into considerations the needs of your stakeholders, but you're the one who has to make that call, and to make that call, you have to understand the technology. So it's not an easy thing to do, and it's not an easy thing to balance. Developing soft skills, creating relationships, staying relevant, staying up to date. I mean, there are a lot of things, and it also might feel like overwhelming, and that is where your mentor comes into play. That is where having someone to unload all of that stress and all that worry can help, because he or this person might give you an outsider's look at your problem, and you might just be drowning in a glass of water. So that's it. That's the episode for today. Going from being a developer into becoming a team lead is not easy. It might be exactly what you want, but you have to remember that to be a great team lead, you still have to put yourself within the team. You're not above it. You're just another team lead with different responsibilities. Those responsibilities involve also protecting the team, but also protecting the business requirements, the business needs. So you have to walk that thin line between both areas and be that firewall between both of them, actually, making sure that you are there to facilitate what needs to happen. Remember also that the transition can be stressful. It can feel like you're not good enough. It can feel like you're not ready. And to solve that problem, and to solve that sensation of not being good enough, not being worthy of the role, remember that some good ideas are to find a mentor, to educate yourself, to find ways to stay relevant, and somehow to find a way to form relationships with your team and with your stakeholders in other ways. Develop your soft skills as much as possible, and try to treat everyone as a person and not as a machine or as a business requirement. And that's it. I hope you found some of my experience useful here. And if you're going through that process right now, hang in there. It's gonna get easier. Just make sure that you try to find someone to talk about these problems. You're not alone in this. All right, that's it. That's the episode. Thank you for listening or watching if you're on YouTube, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye. And that was it for this episode of the Scripting Them podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Remember that you can find me online on Twitter at TheDeepMan123, and you can also find the podcast YouTube channel just searching for the Scripting Them on YouTube. Thank you again, and catch you on the next one.